Welcome to the show.
Next topic. FBI head.
Oh,
Jono.
excuse me. Sounds gross.
Okay, that sounded a lot more dirty than I anticipated.
Hit me with some FBI.
So, do you guys know who James Comey is?
No.
He is not the head of the FBI.
He was, though, up until a couple of days ago
Shivers.
when he got fired by Donald Trump.
Wow.
Can he do that? Can he fire just
He
anyone?
can do
He sure
anything
can.
he wants.
He sure can. He can't do that, but
Anything.
he can fire the head of the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
So, James Comey, if you don't remember, during the presidential campaign last year, he was the guy in charge of investigating Hillary Clinton's emails. Now, he came out like midway through last year, and this whole investigation been happening. They were looking through hundreds of thousands of emails, trying to figure out if she had classified information and she hadn't secured it properly. And he came out midway through the year and was like, while they were careless with the information, it was not criminal. So he was basically saying we're not going to press charges, which was weird, but I'll get to why that was weird later. Normally, and for context, normally the precedent is they don't say anything during a presidential campaign for the fear of like influencing the outcome, which they shouldn't.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense.
There was so much doubt on Hillary, I guess they had to, right?
Yeah, that's the kind of context I guess it happened in. It was that there was like, and it was like doubt based on conspiracy theories.
Right.
And the thing I think that was motivating him, and I'm not sure because I don't think he has a side in this, and it'll come out through the timeline. He kind of like does things that both sides wouldn't like at different times.
That's good.
Yeah, but he was silly, and I'll explain why later. But he shouldn't. Where was I? Okay, later in the year, closer to the election, like a week before the election, they come out and they said they'd found emails on Anthony Weiner's laptop. And you're just laughing. You're just laughing at his name. He was a senator from New York who sent dick pics. By accident on his the reason he got caught was he sent it on a tweet and he meant to private message it and it just came up on his Twitter feed.
Wiener.
The guy named Wiener
The guy named Wiener
posted his wiener on Twitter.
and his alternate name, I think either his name or his name for his penis was Carlos Danger. And John Oliver does a great thing about him.
Amazing.
That was his alter ego for sex?
I think, yeah, that was like his
Amazing.
play name.
Call me Carlos.
Anyway, this guy's wife was Hillary Clinton's top aide.
Mrs. Wiener.
Huma Abedin. I think her last name's Abedin.
No wonder she
I
didn't
don't
change her
think
last
she
name.
took the Wiener name.
Hey, honey, are you gonna,
There was too much to bear.
Are you
the old Wiener?
are you gonna change your last name? Yeah, nah.
Nah, props not.
Nah.
Yeah. And Wiener's a lot to bear, that name. You're walking around with that.
I'm completely lost. What's Wiener got to do?
So anyway, they were investigating. So I don't know, this isn't relevant. But he like sort of had a separation from his wife, and then they were back together, obviously because he'd been sending messages to other people. And then it came out that he'd been doing it again, but this time possibly to a minor. So the FBI was actually investigating him. So the FBI gets his laptop and they find emails that his wife had forwarded to him because she wanted him to print out stuff. But those emails were emails that she got from Hillary Clinton, which might have had classified information. So they had to reopen the investigation.
Oh.
Now, he came out about a week before the election and he was like, we're reopening the investigation because we found these emails.
Bad timing.
Yeah, in the context of this election, everyone was like, Hillary Clinton can't be trusted. This was the biggest problem she had with voters, where they didn't trust her. And the idea of the FBI is that if they're investigating someone, it's not someone that you can trust, right? They don't investigate everyone. They don't investigate people who are like stand up and trustworthy.
That's the NSA that does that.
Yeah, they investigate everyone. And then like 3 days before the election, they came out and said, we've gone through all the emails we found on Wiener's computer. The iWiener. And nothing classified was in them. So they cleared her again. But it was 3 days before the election. Before he came out, a week before, Hillary Clinton was up and was definitely going to win. And then she took like a bit of a dive after they came out saying they were investigating. She never really recovered. Although the polls always said that she was going to win, that definitely lowered the margin when he came out and said that. So the fact that the loss was by such a small margin, it definitely had an impact.
Because even if he came out 3 days before and said it's all good, once you've heard the message, it's in your head. Like, it gives you a negative image of this person.
It's in your head, and if you're in those states, you're getting bombarded with advertising that is bringing up all these things. And it's sort of there was a sort of campaign where no one was actually saying anything real or true. They were just giving an I guess every campaign's like that. But this one was like worse. It was like, did she do this? And then that just like asking the question creates the impression, right? So they had this impression of her, and it just fit into it. And
there's heaps of footage of Trump loving this guy because of this guy. Right?
Well, he flipped, right? Because he was basically saying when Comey first came out saying we've cleared her of any criminal wrongdoing, like we just think that she was extremely careless, like it was the words that he used. It didn't cross that line into like criminal. He was like saying Comey's rubbish and all this stuff, like should be fired or something like that, something along those lines. And then when Comey came out a week before the election, he was saying Comey's really done a good job here. Like, he's a brave man.
Yeah.
That kind of rubbish. Classic Trump. But then after he won, I guess people were like, maybe you should fire him. I think it was... Trump says it was Comey who convinced Trump not to prosecute Hillary Clinton, because that was one of his campaign promises, was like, I'm going to prosecute her. Like, lock her up. They were chanting that. But then they started this whole investigation into collusion between Russia and Trump, right? So that investigation's going on, and James Comey is actually in charge of it through the FBI because they're trying to work out. Everyone's pretty convinced that Russia wanted Trump to win and did act in that way, and that's like not illegal for the Trump campaign. They didn't do anything wrong. But if they colluded with Russia in order to do that, then they committed a crime.
Yes, and slight aside, this all started with the Trump getting peed on in a video, right? Is that part of this?
The Russian collusion thing?
Yeah.
No, I think someone just made that up. I don't think that video actually exists.
The golden showers?
It was like one person made a report, and he's an intelligence person in Britain, I think.
It's like MI6 though, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was like one dude had one report that this thing might exist.
Might exist.
But everyone just thought it was hilarious that he wants to get peed on or whatever, so... But there's no evidence that that actually exists. It's just like, maybe this exists and the Russians have it because they videotape everything that happens in their
just
hotel.
Like a conspiracy theory.
I don't believe it though, because no intelligent person, and
would
Trump is intelligent enough to know not to do anything bad in a Russian hotel. They all know that you don't do anything bad there because they're all going to be bugged.
But when there's two hotties in there
that you've hired and brought in, they
with full bladders,
ready to pee on ya. Mate, sometimes you just gotta
anyway,
say,
this whole
take me away.
This whole confusing thing is really complicated. Anyway, last week the investigation had gotten to the point apparently where James Comey had asked the deputy attorney general. The attorney general and the deputy attorney general are appointed by Trump. He'd asked the deputy for more resources to investigate a particular general who was under investigation called Michael Flynn. He's definitely in deep trouble because he was found to have actually lied to the vice president about his contacts with the Russians and was shown to have had discussions with the Russian ambassador before they were actually elected. So he was a private citizen. He can't engage in diplomacy, and he lied about it. So he's actually in trouble. The Senate hearing committee or whatever that investigated that whole thing has been asking for more information from him, and today they put out a subpoena like forcing him to release his documents. James Comey had gotten to the point, I think, in the investigation, because he's testifying in front of the intelligence committee or whatever. I think they were still asking about what happened during the election last year, but they were never going to get to what they were at in the investigation for Russia. It all kind of gets melded together, but a couple of days before he got fired, he had this hearing where they were like, okay, why did you do what you did? When during the election, why did you say all this stuff out loud? Like, the FBI never does that because it'll have an impact on the election, right? Especially a week out or like 10 days out, whatever it was. And he was like, in his mind, he says he had the option between conceal or tell the truth. Those were his two options. He couldn't conceal that he didn't want in his head to conceal that they were having an investigation. I don't know if this is like the end point. Someone was saying that this is the end point of this whole like WikiLeaks type everyone needs to know everything thing. Like it's like because during the election it was like everything's a conspiracy. There was a Pizzagate conspiracy that there was like a pedophile ring in Washington. Right. There was like crazy conspiracies flying around. There's no evidence for anything. But I think if he must have maybe like to defend him, maybe he thought if someone found out that the FBI had reopened the investigation and they hadn't said anything about it, that would be way worse. Because then it would definitely look like there was some kind of conspiracy. Because this is during the Obama administration, right? Yeah. It's still the Obama administration. Maybe they have all the power and they can do that kind of cover up. But I think that's still really dumb. Because that wasn't his only two options, right? Saying like an investigation doesn't mean you found something wrong. You investigate something to find if you've done something wrong. Saying like the option isn't conceal. It's
and in the history of the FBI, which is since the 30s or whatever, I think I might be off a bit in that. It's always been you don't find out about investigations till like 30 years after they've happened because of stuff like this, right?
Well, so the guy who's the Deputy Attorney General, but he was kind of like voted in. He was selected by Trump, but he was voted in pretty unanimously by the entire Senate, bipartisan support. A guy named Rod Rosenstein had written a report to Trump detailing what he thought, and it was like what everyone thought about how James Comey had behaved. And it was just an overall summary. I read it today. He never explicitly says you should fire him, but he does point out the fact that the FBI's job is not to say what they're investigating. It's never to say what they're investigating. It's never to bring out pronouncements on, we don't think she's guilty. Like the very first one he made in July saying, oh, we're not charging her. That wasn't his job. His job was to tell the Attorney General, who's the head of the Department of Justice, this is what we've found. They are the ones who are meant to make the decision. You know, in Law and Order, when they have that introduction, like the cops investigate the crimes and the prosecutors. The prosecutors are the job, the ones who are meant to prosecute. It's the prosecutor's job to decide if you charge. It's the prosecutor's job to decide what to do with the information that the people investigating find, right? But he's coming out saying all this stuff publicly, and it's like, that's not your job. And his whole letter just makes the point that he's broken the system. Like, this isn't how it's supposed to work.
I wasn't expecting you to take this angle, but you're making it sound like he deserved to get fired.
He brought on himself, and I have no pity for him, because he definitely shouldn't have done the things that he does. And no one thinks that he's done a good job. The reason that he shouldn't get fired by Trump is because it leaves, and this is yet to be seen. It depends on who Trump replaces him with.
Right.
And whether they can appoint an independent prosecutor, because there's still an investigation that involves Trump going on. It's this Russian collusion thing.
Which is why it's so nuts, is how can you fire the person investigating you? That seems like the biggest conflict of interest there is.
Yeah. But if you read this Rod Rosenstein's letter thing entirely, you're like, yeah, he should be fired. It really, like, I almost like imagine Trump didn't even think that much about this thing. He's probably like, he's constantly tweeting about how this Russia thing is fake news and this is a taxpayer funded charade, right?
And then he goes on his plane 3 times a day from Florida to the White House, right?
Yeah, that's very expensive.
Isn't it like tens of thousands every trip?
He's the most expensive president so far.
Yeah. So when he says that about taxpayers, it's just like, piss off.
Yeah, you waste it all the time. But no, he definitely doesn't like him, but I could almost imagine a reasonable person reading that letter and going, yeah, he should be fired.
Yeah, the way you're presenting it now, it sounds like he's a pretty crap director.
He should have been fired. But it'll just come down to whether Trump's then... So Bill Clinton fired an FBI director midway through his term, and it was pretty unprecedented. Like, it's not something that happens often. But he then replaced him. Bill Clinton's a Democrat. Bill Clinton replaced him with a Republican appointed judge. So, like, he knew, obviously, it doesn't look good if you fire the FBI director. So I'm going to put someone in who I obviously wouldn't be on my side. Wouldn't just be like a crony or whatever. So
Trump would never do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll just depend on that. And all these senators are calling for an independent investigator to be put in charge of the investigation, the Russian thing. So it's not like...
biased.
Because Trump could just put someone in charge who's like his lackey.
Yeah.
Like Rudy Giuliani or Chris Christie, and then they'll just make it go away or whatever.
It's so, like, in my mind, it's fact that there's collusion now, though, because of this. And that's what everyone thinks, right?
I think that's like maybe. I think Michael Flynn probably did. It's a question of who knew what. I think Michael Flynn will get done for it. Well, hopefully. I think the Senate is also investigating, so it's like the Senate's doing their investigation, and the FBI is doing an investigation, but that's under the DOJ, which is headed by Jeff Sessions, which is like the guy that Trump put in charge. But he recused himself because he'd had contacts with the Russians. So he can't really influence. Like, Trump might want him to. Trump might want him to be like, stop this investigation, or like, don't let it go too far.
So it just could be incredibly bad timing.
Could be. It isn't.
It's just very convenient.
And now we need to see who he puts in charge instead of James Comey.
That's going to determine, or at least that's going to send the message of...
That will reveal his intentions.
Exactly.
Well, yeah.
Whether he's okay with people investigating this or whether he wants to cover it up.
Yeah, I think that's the real tell, is whether the investigations continue. If they don't, and he's shut them down, and that's what he's going
One
for.
of the previous attorney generals, Eric Holder, had sent out a tweet, and it was like something along the lines of, to every like FBI employee and Department of Justice employee, you know your duty on our country. Like, it was a kind of like call to arms, like, do what your job is, because every one of them should know their job is not to serve the president.
I can imagine
Their
the
job
movie
is to
version.
defend the law.
Yeah.
So it's like he was like trying to give like an inspiring, like,
Yeah.
do your job.
When Comey's fired and he's in his office, and the people come in to take him away, and he quickly calls in his second in command, and he says, "Hey, don't you let me down."
Except there was
You
a
get
different guy completely, and Comey didn't. They sent a letter. They didn't even call him.
It was,
fire.
Trump,
They're
it was
coming.
Trump's bodyguard. That was the funny story.
Yeah, delivered the letter or something
Yeah.
to like, and then apparently
Don't you watch movies?
Apparently he was giving a talk to employees in Los Angeles when the news of him getting fired appeared on television screens behind them.
Jeez.
Oh, no.
Because the news had gotten to their headquarters or whatever, wherever that is. Yeah. I don't think he's a bad dude. I think he just made some terrible mistakes and overstepped what he's supposed to do as the head of the FBI.
Tough job.
Yeah, not an easy job.
But like, there's precedent and there's rules about these kinds of things, and you have examples of what should be done. So I don't really feel sorry for him. But it was bad timing in terms of the Russia investigation. But the guy probably should have gotten fired.
Tough luck.
They should have fired him at the start, though. If he'd fired him like when he first came in, I feel like it would have been okay. But then I think Trump liked him when he first came in because he'd given him the election, basically.
Totally. All right.
There we go.
John Wick 2.
John Wick Chapter 2.
Chapter 2.
Sorry.
Volume 2.
Chapter.
What a book.
Reloaded.
Chapter 2. Any other Keanu Reeves movies or sequels?
The Revolution.
John Wick Revolution.
Speed 2.
Any John Wick.
Point Break.
Point Break 2.
So have you guys seen John Wick Chapter 1?
Yes.
Which was called John Wick?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure did.
Is that the one with the dead puppy?
It is just very sad.
Jeez, spoiler.
Very sad, jeez.
Are you going to spoil this?
No.
Okay.
And Theon Greyjoy.
Has anybody seen John Wick Chapter 2?
No.
No, just me. So I watched John Wick Chapter 2 on Monday.
This is your first movie review.
It is my first movie review. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why are we talking about a movie that was released 3 months ago?
Good question.
Because we're in a backwater country.
Welcome to Australia, where the toilets go the other way when you flush.
I know what you're
Okay, great.
Mine goes like
Because John Wick still, to this day, has not been released. I was lucky enough to attend the advanced screening
Brag about it.
because of my status in society.
Yeah, this is 2 times you've got an advanced screening.
That's right.
Cinebuzz member.
I sign up to the newsletter.